Greetings. This PowerPoint presentation covers key points for Module 2, which is the first of 4 modules dedicated to evaluation theory. This module will focus on the methods branch. This presentation is not exhaustive and will not replace you completing the required readings in order to complete the assignments due for the module. Here is a brief overview of the presentation. Although there are 4 branches on the evaluation theory tree, the methods branch is the most influential and dominant one. Carol West asserts that the traditional and still dominant role conceptualization of evaluators is methods-based and representative of a neutral, detached social scientist. The traditional role of the evaluator has been one of detached, objective inquiry. She or he puts their trust in methodology. This methodology is rooted in quantitative research and prioritizes experimental and quasi-experimental design. As we discussed in Module 1, a post-positivist paradigm corresponds with the methods branch. So now we'll briefly talk about positivism, which preceded post-positivism, and talk about the differences in key figures. The origins of this approach are rooted in European philosophy during the Enlightenment. For example, Galileo Galilei believed the primary properties of things are those that can be measured and counted and thereby quantified. The book highlights how Sir Francis Bacon articulated the principles of what we now know as the scientific method. During the 19th century, his mentee, French philosopher Auguste Comte, popularized positivism with his 6-volume publication on the topic. Comte and Herbert Spencer also contributed to the idea that science can be used to discover laws about human behavior, which can be done through empirical observations. As a result, there is an emphasis on quantitative research, measurement, statistical analysis, as well as testing hypotheses about the general laws. Donald Campbell ushered in what we now know as post-positivism. This is a belief in quantitative approaches that acknowledges that reality can be known within a certain level of probability. Campbell also introduced quasi-experimental methods, which share some characteristics with experimental design, but take into account the complexity of human behavior and context. The following philosophical assumptions underlie this paradigm. Let's start with ontology. Ontologically, positivists believe that one reality exists. This reality can be discovered and measured, and it is independent of the observer. Post-positivists believe the same thing. However, they assert that this reality can be known within a certain level of probability. Epistemologically, both positivists and post-positivists believe that valid knowledge is obtained when there is distance from the object of study. This contributes to reducing bias in research. Methodologically, positivists prioritize the use of true experiments, which require random selection of subjects and random assignment to interventions, while post-positivists believe in both experimental and quasi-experimental designs. Lastly, for axiology, which speaks to what is ethical, both positivists and post-positivists believe that good research is described as that which reflects intellectual honesty, the suppression of personal bias, and the careful collection of empirical studies. Now we'll briefly speak about the 3 evaluation theories from this branch that are discussed in the book. The first are experimental and quasi-experimental approaches. In an experimental approach, the evaluator randomly selects subjects from a program. These subjects are then randomly assigned to an experimental or control group. Then outcomes are measured and compared. Remember that many programs seek to change the knowledge, behavior, attitudes, or aptitudes of its participants. Quasi-experimental designs share many characteristics with experimental designs, but are adapted for use with human populations in realistic settings. I've highlighted 3 examples of quasi-experimental designs. In the one group pre-test, post-test design, a single pre-test observation is taken on a group of participants, a treatment then is applied, and a single post-test observation on the same measure is taken. In a non-equivalent comparison group design, which is one of the most common quasi-experimental designs, there is a treatment group and an untreated comparison. However, the groups are non-equivalent. Nevertheless, they both are given a pre and post test and are assessed on the same measure. Lastly, a simple interrupted time series design requires one treatment group with many observations before and after a treatment. This is an example of a design with 6 observations. This is a book I'd like to recommend to anyone that's interested in having a reference for the various experimental and quasi-experimental designs you can employ during an evaluation or a research project. Next is theory-based evaluation, which is an approach that focuses on the theories people have about what it takes to have a successful program. There are 2 approaches to theory-based evaluation. The first one is by Chen and Rossi. The evaluator creates a conceptual framework based on an action model and a change model. The evaluator primarily uses quantitative methods and complicated statistical analyses to identify variables contributing to the outcomes of a program. The next approach is by Donaldson. And he encourages the development of a program theory. This program theory is used to define and prioritize the evaluation questions and determine the most appropriate scientific methods. And Donaldson doesn't limit these evaluations to just quantitative, but a mix of quantitative and qualitative methods. Lastly, we'll talk about the evaluation of training programs. The first model, the Kilpatrick model, has 4 levels that an evaluator assesses: participant reactions, learning, behavior, and results. The model assumes that these contribute to a program or organization's bottom line or its return on investment. However, the success case method challenges that participant satisfaction and improvement correlate to a return on investment for an organization and encourages the use of both qualitative and quantitative methods to assess this. This concludes the presentation for Module 2, which again is not a replacement of the required readings, but just provides an opportunity to discuss some of the key topics.